Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Hello and welcome to the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 77, Almost Falconed It. I'm John, and joining me once again here this evening is Andy. Andy, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, John. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. You feel much better after we go back to winning ways this week?
Yeah, I feel better. We won the game, but it got a little bit nervous towards the end.
Well, like as I've already said about our episode title, Almost Falconed It, I think that's a pretty concise way of summing up how the end of the game felt for us, eh?
Yeah, pretty much sums it up perfectly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so obviously this evening we're here to talk about and dissect the Week 2 win over the Atlanta Falcons, which saw us returning to winning ways, going 1-1 after a 31-27 win. So coming out of the game, initially kind of like the fourth quarter just seemed to kind of fall apart, didn't it, Andy?
Yeah, it seemed to be the first three quarters we were in control. This looked like a comfortable game for us. And then the fourth quarter, I think it was just a case of we took our foot off the gas a little bit too much. And we allowed Atlanta to get into it, and then a couple of little fluky things like the blocked punt, and all of a sudden, the game got a lot closer than it really should have been on paper.
Well, yeah, that's it. It's that's the big question that coming out of it is: should we be letting teams get that close to us when we should really be pulling away and putting them to the sword?
No, not really. At the end of the day, I understand they've probably eased off a little bit. Maybe there's an injury thing, we don't want injuries or anything else. But, you thought in the fourth quarter, we'll probably see Wolford up, this week come in, for the last drive or two. We were that comfortable. And then all of a sudden, like you said, it just seemed to all turn on its head. And before we knew where we are, we were pretty much felt like we were fighting just to keep in the game. And we shouldn't be allowing teams to get to that point. If we've got teams at the sword, let's just keep them there to make sure. Because this isn't the first time it's happened to with the team. We've had games like that before where we've looked like we're walking away, and then all of a sudden it's got a lot closer than we want. So we just need to keep the pressure on and go for the kill. Because at the end of the day, for all we know, it comes to playoffs of who's got the better score record, and you don't want to not go into a playoffs, for example, because, somebody scored, more points than you did in the game.
Yep, absolutely. Just going through the kind of drive summary. So the Falcons came out to begin with a 54-yard drive, which resulted in quite a missed field goal by Q. Is that a bit of a surprise for you, Andy? Because Q is usually quite clinical with his kicking.
Yeah, he's one of those now that you sort of, once you get within sort of 55, you just assume he's just going to be one of those automatic players. He's just going to bang them in. And it was just, luckily for us, it was the one fluff that he seemed to miss, luckily.
Yep, it was I was quite shocked. I was just taken aback and really shocked. There's no way that's wide. I think I actually rubbed my eyes. It was very high pitch. He's missed it. Sitting to myself, so I was looking for someone to talk to. Please tell me someone else seen that. So I was quite shocked because, he's usually really consistent with his kicking. So when the Rams came out to follow that up with a 61-yard drive, which resulted in an absolute beautiful fade, A-Rob for his first touchdown as a Ram. What did you make of that pass?
Oh, that was just a beautiful pass. That was the sort of pass that, Stafford is known for. We've seen it now ourselves time and time again. He just seems to have that perfect touch. You can just get that ball perfectly where you want it so that only, your player can get anywhere near it. And it was a thing of beauty, I have to admit. It's one thing I do like about Stafford is he throws those balls so beautifully. And, fair play to A-Rob as well. There was a little bit of thing, last week, not many touches, is he up to speed? He did show that, he is definitely now back up to speed and starting to, I think, get that bond with Stafford as well.
Yeah, just on it, Robbie was targeted 5 times, made 4 catches, although technically, we almost made a fifth against him. He got 1 touchdown, he almost got a second one during the game. So he did, so it was good to see him get more touches. Maybe as the weeks go on, we'll see more of him, but he did seem to be kind of more the primary receiver target as the game started, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was seemed to be Atlanta seemed to have like most teams I think are going to do is the plan, try and cover up Cup as best as they can, corner and a safety on him, to limit it. And that's where, as you say, you want Alan Robinson then to step up and say, all right, well, yeah, take him out the game. We have Robinson here. He's just as capable of causing as much damage as Cup is if he's given the chance. And, this week, the stat line, 53 yards and a touchdown, I think for all of us, we couldn't really ask for a better stat line from him this week, really.
So just keep going through a drive summary. So Falcons then came out and turned it over in downs, whereas the Rams then followed up a 50-yard drive, resulting in a Henderson rushing touchdown. It was nice to see him punch it in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was nice to see him punch it in, And to be honest, I thought our run game looked. It wasn't perfect, but it looked a lot better than it did week one, and we did seem to get a bit more consistency going, and it seemed to also, as I said, help the game because then it opened up that play action passing for us. But yeah, he was definitely, he did his job and he, punched it in, So fair play to the guy.
Falcons then finally got on the board with a field goal after a 77-yard drive. And then Matt Stafford turned over for the first time in what appears to be a bad read by Stafford. I'm just going to keep going because, like last week, where Akers seemed to be a talking point, since the game, Stafford seems to be a talking point. So I think we'll just keep going on and we'll come back to Stafford's performance in particular. Falcons then came out and threw an interception to rookie Jacoby Durant. The Rams then took the ball home with a Cooper Kupp touchdown. And interestingly enough, in the first 27 minutes of the game, Cooper Kupp wasn't targeted once. Do you think that was down to the Falcons having covered up, or do you think it was maybe game plan to try and target elsewhere to then bring them away from Kupp?
I think it was more they just had him covered up. I think obviously it probably would be in the plan that, if he's covered up, we'll go to someone else. But I think it was just a case of he was covered up, that they were doing the job. But, as this game started to get away from Atlanta a little bit, I think they had to make their adjustments. And Cooper Kupp just adjusted his game as well. He was like, okay, well, I can't beat you this way. Let's try and, we'll turn it around. Maybe I'll see if I can get you this way. And I think how he adjusted himself to the game then allowed it to open up where he could start getting those passes. And, maybe at that point, some of the focus was going from Kupp to Robinson, which then again will then allow, they can't double team both of them because then you've got the likes of Higbee to, try and cover. So, I think it was a combination of his play plus obviously the Falcons having to adjust to what we were doing.
Coming out the second half, Kupp followed out another touchdown again after a 75-yard drive to put the score 28-3 to the Rams, which is at the point where I guess the Falcon starts to come into play. Falcons go 4-out in the next drive before Stafford immediately throws in his second interception of the day. Falcons then finally get a touchdown with a Drake London completion, followed up by an 83-yard drive for the Rams, which comes away with a field goal. The important to point out at this time, it's 31-10 at the end of the third. This is the last time the Rams score. And then we come to the fourth quarter. Falcons start building up a bit of momentum, getting more completions, working way up the field. They get a touchdown, bring it to 31-17. Riley Dixon then has his punt blocked on the next drive and returned for a touchdown after what appears to be our centre, Orjek, allows Carter to come straight through, block the punt, pick it up and return it for a touchdown. The Rams then fumble the ball after it's punched out of Kupp's hands on the next drive. Atlanta recover. Then, with the score at 31-24, Jalen Ramsey comes up out of nowhere, intercept Mariota on the goal line, which would have been the game-tying touchdown had he not got there. And it's been described as a Randy Moss catch. What did you make of that interception by Ramsey?
Oh, it was Randy Moss. That's the way he climbed above him. Fair play, Again, like we said last week, Akers was getting stick, Ramsey was getting a bit of stick, even, in the mainstream press, so for him to come out and, to make that interception and show that he's back to sort of what the standard he expects, is good to see. And, hopefully it continues.
Absolutely. I jumped out of the couch when he picked that ball to the air.
Yeah.
And it was like, as if you're watching Randy Moss catch that, the height he got to get above the receiver to pick that ball out there. And just when you needed that play to happen, all credit to Ramsey for stepping up for that, because my personal feeling was it was a matter of time before they tied and then probably went for the 2 point to take the lead. And at that point, I felt like we're not going to be able to go up here and score to win this game unless we can somehow get in field goal range. That was kind of the way the general feeling for myself was going. It just seemed to kind of we'd taken the foot off the gas, gave them too much space, allowed them too much room to manoeuvre around us, and we were paying for it. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, that was exactly how I felt. I felt if they had have scored that myself, I don't think we'd have been able to come back. I know Stafford's, known as the comeback king, but I think the mentality of the team, they were basically in coasting mode, and I don't think, as you said, they'd have been able to switch it back on again to be able to, go back down and score. We'd saw it even before then. You'd think, oh, maybe they'll switch it back on. They just didn't seem to be able to get that groove again that they had for the first 3 quarters in the last quarter.
So then coming out into the kind of penultimate drive, the Rams set up for a punt with Brandon Powell lined up to punt. When this happens, one thing I should point out, on the Riley Dixon punt, when Carter makes the block, he kind of connects with the knee of Dixon. So initially I'd thought that Dixon had got injured and Powell was legitimately lining up to punt. And it was all, I think the commentators at the very last second questioned if the Rams were going to go for a safety here, which is exactly what they did. Powell takes a snap and immediately just runs backwards towards our end zone, goes out of bounds, takes a safety. It's 31-27. And following the game, McVay gave us a bit of insight into this. And the call to actually do this came from Wolford.
Yeah, it was a surprise, but it was also nice to see that, McVay's not stuck in his ways. And if, even a player comes up with a suggestion, he will think and, go, okay, yeah, we'll give, we'll try it, and I think it is something they did say they practiced a couple of times during pre-season and the off, to sort of get it down to a fine art. But I know at first you were thinking, why is he there? Like you, I was like, hang on, why is he there? I assumed if anyone was going to trot out, if Dixon was injured, it was going to be, they'll let Matt Gay do it and, just get on with it. And then you saw Powell and I was like, I'm sort of quickly Googling, has Brandon Powell ever played punter or ever taken a kick in his life? I thought, maybe he's like this, what's his face, the Chiefs, Justin Reed. Maybe he can just, he's one of them, he can just magically do it.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of wide receivers that when they were in college, they doubled up as punters from time to time. So it's one of those ones, like initially I thought Dixon's injured, so we've got to pick him. And I didn't even question for a second, why is Matt Gay not out there? Because you would think the other kicker would take it. But
you would have assumed if we were going to, kick it away, you were like, okay, well, it would be. Unless, like I said, he does have experience and maybe it's something they know that they've never let on. You would have assumed it would have been oh well, Matt Gay's trotting out, he's going to have to I'm sure if push comes to shove, they're pretty much interchangeable. They probably do know how to punt. As much as it's kicking the ball, I'm sure he would have been able to do it one way or another, and you would have just assumed that was, the plan would be for Gay to take over.
So I think McVay, the other thing he also said is that Wolford also works with the special teams units and they work out scenarios like this based on, things they could do during the game depending on the scoreline and depending on how, as a team, we are performing. And it sounded as if like they did have this scenario cooked up. And Wolford came to him and said, run for a safety, because then we can essentially, well, the kickoff is more of a punt really than an actual kickoff. So we can keep them back and control where they are. Like they'll only have time for like 1, maybe 2 plays at best. And then obviously the last play, I think because the punt went out of bounds, it was more or less it was either between the 40 or the 50 yard line. They had the chance to just basically sling it, and obviously we had deep coverage, whatnot. And luckily for us, we got pressure on. Mariota sacked him. He fumbled the ball, which Aaron Donald recovered to end the game. It's one of those. It was an interesting call to make, but it's one that obviously paid off.
Yeah. I was just thinking I believe, was it Dixon who made the kick as well? So it may have been, but it went out of bounds because he was injured, so he couldn't kick it properly.
Yes, it was Dixon who did it. Yeah.
So you were sort of, you were starting to go, hang on, if he's just kicking this, why can't? But maybe, because if you watch the video, if you watch the replay back, his knee doesn't half hyperextend. It nearly went back on it, and you're like, ooh, everyone's, crouching, holding the knees. I'm thinking, obviously the plan wasn't for the kick to go out of bounds. I did say that, afterwards, the plan wasn't for that to happen. So maybe that was just a bit of an injury. He couldn't quite kick it as well as he maybe should have done. But our luck changed just at the right time, luckily, and as you say, AD again wins us a game, I think.
Yep, stepping up. Just to breaking down kind of not necessarily individual performance, but areas within the team performance. We'll start with the defence. On the topic of Aaron Donald there, do you feel like he's got off to a quiet start to the season, Or do you think it's a case of he's not really getting into the game the way he hopes and wants to?
I think it's more just a case of, obviously, as we all know, he's going to be double, triple teamed no matter what is happening. But I do find, I think if I remember correctly, Aaron Donald does tend to start off slow. I think, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think he went for four games before he actually got a sack. So sometimes I think he can start off a little bit slower than, and then he builds up his pace as he goes through the season. So, I'm not, too worried about Aaron Donald at the moment. I think it's just a case of he's getting going. It's give him he's getting double teamed. As we all know, practically every single. You watch that game, every single snap on defense, Aaron Donald has got two. Sometimes he's got two plus the running back coming at him as well. To try and slow him down.
Yeah, I think what's worrying me about Donald is not necessarily him and his performances. I think because of all the talk about retirement and the talk about he'd already written a letter and was submitting it and whatnot, for me the worry is pressure being put on him externally, not within the team or by coaches or by Mike Vee or anybody, but externally, media and whatnot, because of all that talk in the off season. That if you're right in what you say, Andy, he does get off to a kind of slow start and then he just starts to feast on teams, and it's probably usually when we start coming against like divisional opponents, like for example this week with the Cardinals. It could be a case of, like you say, it's just the typical Aaron Donald, I'm just feeling myself into the game, whatnot. I don't have a pre-season, that I'm on the sidelines, throughout pre-season. So this is really me now getting up to speed. My worry, like I said, is that pressure could be stuck going, is Aaron Donald past it now? And personally, like, it'll really piss me off if that kind of chat starts, because Aaron Donald is still at the peak of his career and he's still going to be there for at least a good few years. God willing that he plays for another few years, because he was obviously serious about retirement and was seriously considering it.
I'm not completely convinced that retirement talk was. I personally, myself, think that was just to get more money out of the team.
Probably.
I don't see a guy who's in his prime. I know he says he's won it all. He's done everything he wants in his career. But, you can't tell me the guy doesn't want to get to his 100 sacks. He doesn't want, potentially want to push, to be the all-time sack leader in the league. I would imagine those sorts of things, to be, the number one in his position is, not a driving force for a guy like Aaron Donald. He doesn't seem like that sort of player that, he's just going to go, I'm done, I'm finished. I think his own personal mindset and how he is would be, I want that, I want to be the number one at my position ever. I do want to be the defensive GOAT of of all time. And I think that those sort of motivations will still keep him going myself.
Yeah,
so I think it was more, as I said, that contract. I want more money. Maybe he went to the team and the team went, we don't know, but you're already on X amount. We really can't afford it. So maybe his agent's gone, we'll do this and let's see what happens. They force the situation onto the Rams then to and then if he did leave, they could then turn around and say, well, we did this. The team said no, so he's done whatever, he's retired.
Yeah,
so,
that could be the very likely case. For me, when the stuff about the letter came out, it was a case of he's obviously serious enough about it to go to that point of physically just about to hand in his retirement. So, like you said, though, it's the truth. It's probably we'll use this as a bargaining chip. Elsewhere in the defence, we've talked about Jalen Ramsey. His stats looked more like his usual self in terms of what he allowed, but what did you make of Jacoby Durant's performance? An interception and a sack?
Yeah, I thought, considering, the news that came out afterwards, that, even before the interception, he had a hamstring injury, and so he was running around with a hamstring injury. It's quite an impressive debut, from him, to be able to come in, as he did, replace Troy Hill. And, I thought he did pretty well. There's things he could probably clean up in his game, but he's a young rookie, and cornerback on defense is one of the hardest, positions to pick up because of, what they've got to do. But overall, I thought, he had a solid debut. For him, I don't think, as you say, sacking a pick, you couldn't, for him, it's probably a dream come true sort of debut. And, he looked promising, and it looks like he may have to be called up a little bit more as well now that obviously, we are suffering injuries in the back end of the team as well.
Yep, I think with Troy Hill being put on IR, we'll definitely be seeing more of Durant over the next few weeks for sure anyway, but interesting to see how he kind of develops and how he performs the next few weeks. Personally, I thought it was a kind of stepping out of the shadows into the kind of light performance from him, just kind of came out of nowhere and really stepped up. He seemed to like taking some comments off of the Discord server. Quite a few other guys kind of felt the same. For a guy who was a rookie, like we've got David Long Jr. out there who gets absolutely burnt and roasted some weeks, if not most weeks, and then Durant just came out and got in a great performance for a rookie. How well do you think we did at containing Mariota? Because last week we spoke about Mariota being good on his feet and being able to scramble.
Yeah, to be honest, I think, not just Mariota, but the whole run game. We kept their run game quiet, which is what we needed to do. If you look at the stats, Patterson, 10 carries, 41 yards. The second running back was 10 carries as well, 30 yards. And then Mariota, 6 carries for 16 yards. The run defense did its job like we wanted them to. They kept them quiet. They shut down their run game, considering, like I said, the week before they ran, riot. This week we sort of was like, right, you know what, you're not running us. We kept Mariota contained in the pocket, and like we said with the game plan, if you keep him in the pocket, don't let him get out and run around, and make him rely on passing the ball. We can stunt them, and that's exactly what we did. Fair play to the team that that they came out and they basically were like, no, you're not running us over this week. We're going to hold you. I think again, a lot of the praise, as much I'm critical of the guy. I thought Sean Robertson had a pretty good game again. Against the run. He's not my favourite player. I think I've made it clear. I'd quite happily for us to have let him go and kept somebody like Joseph Day myself. But he's here and he seems to have stepped up. You've also got to give credit to the likes of Ernest Jones and Bobby Wagner as well, who were getting into the backfield and causing that, and stopping them from being able to do the runs. So fair play to them. They came out and they were like, basically, you're gonna have to pass through us. You're not gonna run it down our throat like you want to. I think that did help initially. The first, to be honest, 3 quarters with their game plan, because they kept trying and they just basically were, the Falcons just felt like they were headbutting a brick wall because of how well we were stopping them.
Yeah, considering in week 1 Josh Allen was the leading rusher, I thought we performed a lot better in terms of the run game, and I don't know where I read this, so don't quote me on this, but apparently we have, if not the best, but one of the best run defenses in the league based off of the first 2 weeks, which is nuts considering the first week a quarterback ran riot on the ground against us.
Yeah, the only thing I can assume is they don't count the quarterback running as the guy.
They must
not come into the stats. I
don't know. I would just, my assumption would be it should, because it shouldn't matter whoever's got the ball. It's a run play, so it should count the stats. But yeah, it's a bit strange to say that, when so many times we've went on about how bad the run defense is, but the weaknesses that we've had in the past at run defense has came about because of our linebacking core. So on that, how do you think Wagner was better this week than he was last week? So last week there was people trying to criticise him, saying that he looked a bit washed out, which I thought personally was, it's not the case. He's like I said last week, the likes of Von Miller we had last year, it took him a few weeks before he got properly into our system. I personally felt Wagner looked better this week, and I think that'll just improve as the weeks go on.
I think, in terms of, I think, getting, helping the defense, getting them set up, calling out the play call, and I think he felt a bit more, obviously he was probably a bit more comfortable. But his stat line from, this week is pretty much identical to last week's, 7 tackles, 3 tackles, solo tackles, a sack and a tackle for loss, which is basically what he did. It's pretty much similar stats to what he did last week. So I think he's just going to be a consistent player. I think, people are saying because of his age, and don't get me wrong, like I said last week, I think he has lost that half a yard maybe in speed, but where he's lost that half a yard in speed, he's using his intelligence to be right. Okay, well, I'm not going to, so I'll be in, that half step earlier, or that half second earlier, just to be in the right place to get where I want to be. So I think the talk of him being washed up, It seems to be every player, as soon as they hit 30 in the NFL, if they're washed up, they've passed it, apart from quarterbacks. Again, modern, 20 years ago, players probably were 30 was that was it, their end of their career. Now, players can go on for a lot longer than they used to, much like, any, sport. So, but I think he's just been a solid, consistent, and if that's going to be his stat lines week in, week out,
I'll take that.
Yeah, everyone will take that. I think the other side of it as well that I think that people are realising is, I think by him being there next to Ernest Jones, he's given Ernest Jones the ability to say, all right, you know what, I'll hold down the middle. So in the tackle box, this is my area. If the running back or the quarterback gets outside, that's your job because you're younger, you're quicker, you're going to go after him. So I think, that side of it. And also he's coaching Ernest Jones up, which is only going to help Jones in the long run, down the years for us, that if he can then take that wisdom that Bobby Wagner and that experience and put it on the field. And to be honest, I think it's starting to show because, Ernest Jones was our top tackler this week, by a country mile. So, you're hoping that, he's a sort of, it's only going to benefit him as well as the team as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. And this is where I'm a big advocate for having, specifically in positions like either on the lines or in the linebacking course, of having that kind of veteran next to someone young, not necessarily a rookie, but someone that's maybe a couple of seasons in, really helps develop and give players like Jones the chance to just go out, and just without any pressure that I need to drop back in the coverage. Or they've got a guy like Wagner there who can say, right, well, I'm going to cover the middle here. You go, if it comes in here, you go and just do your thing. They're not having to come in to cover. Like, for example, last year when we had Troy Reader playing at a linebacker, you've the likes of Jones or whatever can't go out and do what they're supposed to do because they've got, quite frankly, a poor linebacker next to them that they're then having to cover for. Whereas with a guy like Wagner, they can stick to the rules and stick to what they want to do and what they want to try and get out of the game. If they've got a game plan, I'm going to go after Mariota. They can do that because I can't remember if it was Jones or Floyd. I think it was Floyd. There was one time when he got right up to Mariota, and it annoyed me because if he got his hands up in the air, it was a blocked pass. But he was more concerned with going for the sack, which I guess as a linebacker, linebackers love getting sacks. It's what is they probably feast off it. And it gives them adrenaline, a bit of a rush to go out and and to take a quarterback down, more so than a guy on the line. A guy on the line's obviously closer, but for a linebacker to either find a gap through, that line, or find a gap through round the edges to get to the quarterback, that's kind of a bigger achievement for them. So I suppose I can guess why the priority was to try to take the quarterback down. But like I said, yeah, I'm a big advocate in having that kind of veteran player there. And again, like I said, if Wagner's going to put those kind of stats out and be consistent week in, week out, he's absolutely not washed up. He's a consistent performer and he's going to be a great addition to our linebacking core as the season gets on. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think he is going to be, that Mr. Consistent, Mr. just does his job. I don't think he's going to put up, world-beating numbers, but I think he's just going to, as you say, just be that consistent guy each week. That if that's what he's doing, that's all you need out of your middle linebacker. You just need them to, hold the line, stop the run, and cover up, and he's doing it perfectly at the moment. So fair play to the guy.
Yeah. So moving over to the offense, starting with kind of the receiving core. So we touched upon A-Rob getting more touches this week. I'm just looking elsewhere at the stats. Cup 11 receptions for 108 yards. Again, a pair of touchdowns. Great performance from Cup, considering that he only really, they're talking the second half, was getting those targets. Again, Higbee was number 2 kind of receiver with 71 yards. Robinson got his touchdown, unlucky to get a second touchdown, 53 yards. Akers got 18 yards off 2 targets. Skowronek, 2 targets off of 16 yards. But Skowronek, we'll talk about in a second, had a better game elsewhere, I felt. And then Powell got 1 reception for 6 yards. The interesting one here, just before I move over to Skowronek, is Atwell just didn't get a look in at all this week. Do you think it's been all hype with him because of how good he looked in camp? Do you think McVeigh's now looking at him thinking, I don't think this guy's the answer because he's just dropped off the face of the earth kind of on this game?
I don't know with that. Well, again, we don't see what happens week in, week out in the training. Maybe there's something behind the scenes that we're not knowing about, or maybe it's just simply a case of the game plan's just not calling for him at the moment. Could just be a case of because we were so comfortably in front, maybe a case of, we don't need that speed to take the top off the lid, so we're not going to bother using you this week. We don't need you. By the time, we got to the point where it was like, oh, hang on a minute, maybe, that the Falcons were getting a bit too close for comfort to try and change about the game plan or anything. Was maybe just a bit, McVay maybe just decided, you know what, because we all know McVay can be a bit like sometimes, plan A and there's no plan B. It'll just be right, we'll go back out and do this again and, see if it works. So, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it does feel weird that, all the hype that even the team was putting out in the preseason, he just doesn't seem to be. I think I saw him on the field once, I think in the whole game. So what is going on? Maybe McVay's just worried about his injury history, so he's sort of keeping him fresh for when, maybe a bit down further in the season if he can, when, we may need players like him to step up. To be able to get the speed, get up the top, and just clear out defenders to allow the likes of Robinson. Because I think that is the only knock people do say about Cup and Robinson. There's not, they haven't got a tier speed.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point in the season, that will be Atwell's job. Will be right, get out there, just run a vet, just clear some players out, so we've got that space for the likes of Cup and Robinson to do their work. But we'll have to just wait and see. As I say, it's still early days in the season. We'll just have to see what happens with him. But you are beginning to worry that it was a wasted pick, to be honest, now because of the lack of action. He was initially supposed to be, if nothing else, our magical, kick and punt returner. He's not even doing that anymore. We've given those duties to Brandon Powell, so you are starting to question: is this just a bust now?
That's it, yeah. Brandon Powell, who is our kick returner, but is also, playing and seeing more snaps than that. Well, moving back to Skowronek, 2 receptions for 16 yards, but we're not interested in that. What we're interested in is Ben Skowronek, the fullback. What did you make of Skowronek playing fullback in the I formation?
I thought that was a brilliant decision, to be honest. I really did. I was quite surprised, but really quite chuffed with how he played, to be honest. I think we've all said, all along, he can be a bit dropsy with his hands last season. We all saw that. But when it comes to blocking, for a wide receiver, he's almost up there with Cup and his ability to block, to be honest. So seeing them, okay, we'll change the game plan, to maybe help the run game. We'll play with, we don't traditionally have a fullback. We don't play fullback. We never have under McVay at all. So, fair play to McVay. Give him, hats off to McVay. He's sort of looked at the problem and gone, right, how can I solve this? To maybe get the run game going. Well, let's try Skowronek and a fullback and see what happens. But the guy was running dudes over, and I'm talking, I think there was one highlight that someone put out on Twitter, and it was one of the defensive ends. So the guy's, about 50 pounds heavier than him. He just ran him over like he didn't even exist.
Is that the one where we were whatever in goal? Because I was one clip I seen today and I retweeted it saying Ben Skowronek is a wide receiver who's put in a block that any fullback would be proud of.
Yeah, it might have been that one, yeah. And he puts the guy on his backside.
Yeah.
And you're like,
that one, yeah.
Whoa, okay, where's this come from? And, we need to keep this going. Because I do think, maybe it's his little niche, he can play that. But then he also, has that ability, much like, say, Cal Juszczyk of, okay, well, he'll drift out the backfield and maybe catch some passes as well when we need it. He can become that safety net for Stafford, so that if the big play's not there, we can maybe dump it off to him who's snuck out, to get 5-6 yards and keep drives going rather than heaving it and praying that it gets caught. So I like the idea of this, to be honest, and hopefully it wasn't just a one-off thing and that's it. McVeigh will keep using him in this position because I think he may have just found his niche for the team.
Absolutely agree. When I first seen him line up, I was a bit confused to what was going on, but immediately after the first few plays they started running it, I could see what McVeigh was trying to do, and I was heavily critical of Skoranek at the kind of tail end of last season. In the off season, I'll say this again, pointing towards some highlights of him and could see what he could do as a receiver in terms of blocking as well as catching, and thought I'll go start a fresh year. And to be honest, I'm starting to be sold on Benisco, especially in this fullback role, not just for his blocking ability, but the versatility and option that he gives Stafford coming out of the backfield, because there was a lot of plays early on where he was just exploding out of that position right through the offensive line, and he was immediately opened. So he was giving Stafford more options than he would if he was lined up, in the slot or whatever. It adds a totally new dimension, I actually felt, for the offense, because the defense must be looking at going, they've got the wide receiver lined up at fullback. What the hell is going on? It must have confused the Falcons at first. It'll be tough for them because trying to read, they don't know whether to read. Is he going to block? Is he going to block for the run, or is he going to just come out? So it could add a lot of confusion towards defenses trying to read what we are trying to do in the I formation. And the I formation is not a formation that we run really at all. So I think Stafford kind of prefers, the shotgun. So it's one of those ones it's really thrown something new at teams, and hopefully we get to see more of it.
Yeah, as I say, it was definitely one. I think, the Falcons probably were looking, going, hang on, why is he over there? What's going on here? Yeah, another thing to point out as well, by doing this with him, if you notice a few times, he'd be in the fullback position. We'd flex him then back out as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Or bring him from the wide receiver back to the fullback, which then gives Stafford, I think, the read as well. Are they in man coverage? Are they in zone? What are they doing? So it also is going to help Stafford because it'll help him read the defence and what they're playing as well, which, maybe, as I say, will help Stafford then. He can go, oh, hang on, they've just moved him, so they must be playing in man coverage, so we'll adjust to this play. Because I did notice a few times they'd have him out, and then as soon as they put him back out, Stafford would go, all right, and then he'd change the play, to adjust to it. So it can only help as well Stafford to be able to, read the defence a little bit better to see what they're playing at, But in terms of, as you say, overall, I was the same. I saw him come out and I was like, oh, hang on, what's he doing there? What's going on here? And then, like you said, after a few thingos, and I was like, okay, this is working. And by half, I was like, yeah, this is it. Benny Sco should just get his thing changed now. He's a fullback in the team. That's his new job. I think it is going to help the team coming down. Obviously teams are going to start switching onto it, but then this is where you want McVeigh then to turn around and start being a little bit cute and creative with him. Another thing, I'd let him take the handoffs of the ball. Instead of, like what the likes of Baltimore and the Whiners do. Instead of passing it, handing it off. Give it to the fullback, for those short yards. Let's see if he can maybe, be that bit of power to get those extra, when we just need 1 or 2 yards. Let's see if he can do that sort of job as well. We'll just see what happens, but it looks promising for him at the moment. I will say that much.
Yep, and just like you'd said earlier on, I think that he's definitely found his niche in his team, so it'll be interesting just to see how this develops over the next few weeks. So just lastly, before we kind of wrap up on the Falcons game, the main talking point is around Matt Stafford. Another 2 interceptions this game, so that's 5 for the season out of 2 games. What's your thoughts on Stafford's performance so far this season, Andy?
To be honest, to me, it's just, this is Matthew Stafford. I've looked at him traditionally through the years that in when he played even for the Lions, the only times he's never thrown at least double digit interceptions is in years he's been injured. If you look at his best stat line with the Detroit Lions in 2011, 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 picks. You look at him last year, nearly 4,900 yards, 41 touchdowns, 17 picks. He consistently throughout the season will throw anywhere from sort of, I think it said averages 14 picks a season throughout his career. So, this is what Stafford is. He likes to play the hero ball. He likes to lob it down a little bit. So you accept that you're going to get, as much as we're going to get the lovely big plays, he is prone to turnovers. And also, you've got to look at, McVeigh has this player something he never had in Goff. Goff had a good arm, but he never had an elite arm like Stafford.
Yeah.
So, he was never able to go, just go, we're at a 25-yard line. Oh, well, just go vert, and we'll just lob it up to you and, we'll play that 50-50 ball because, once you sort of got 40, 50 yards down the field, you were at the range of what Goff could do. With Stafford, that's just, that's nice. That's an everyday occurrence. But I think, the thing of, Stafford's washed his, everything else. I think I saw one tweet, Goff's better than Stafford.
Yeah.
You're like, no, this is just what Matthew Stafford is. He's going to give you those. And I think even when he joined us, some Lions fans were saying, oh, you'll have some really good games with him. And then you'll have other games where you're scratching your heads going, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think it proved it last season. We had a number of games where you're like, and what is going on? You look like the number one quarterback in the league last week, and now you look like Joe Average at best. I think that's just how it's going to be. We're going to get the turnovers, but we're going to get those big plays as well. And it's what do you prefer? Do you want to take that risk? And he's going to turn the ball over a little bit more. Or would you rather go safe, and not have those, limit him and limit the offense as well? Because, if you're just chucking it underneath, teams are going to know what you're doing, so they can come closer and closer and stifle the likes of Kupp. I think this is where Kupp is so successful, because teams have got to respect his arm and the fact that he can go that deep. They have to give that space, which then allows the likes, as you say, Kupp to play his, intermediate game where he rules. Basically, he's the best intermediate receiver in the league to me.
Yep, I'm going to try and not rant here when I say my thoughts on this, right?
Yeah,
because
go on.
You've touched upon quite a few of the points, and it starts with people still comparing Goff and Stafford. Goff's moved on. He's at the Lions. He's started off well this season. He's doing well. I think he's found his place. I think a team like the Lions is where he'll do well. Okay? He's gone. Let him go. That's it, right? Also, 2020 season, go back and watch the games with Goff. Because if anyone's want to still try to say that Goff is better than Stafford, stop living off the Monday night football game with the Chiefs, where that was Goff at his peak. Goff was amazing that night. Goff could have, if that was the Super Bowl, it would go down as the greatest Super Bowl in all of history.
Yeah.
Goff peaked that night for me. 2020 season, Goff regressed. When you're saying there about Kupp, you're absolutely right. He's an intermediate receiver. But that whole season, teams knew Goff wasn't going to throw it more than 20, 30 yards. They knew to defend within that line because Goff wouldn't go beyond it. And guys like Kupp couldn't get into games properly, couldn't get the yards. And their receivers were not bad at him, but they weren't putting up great stats because Goff couldn't get over that line, whereas Stafford can. Stafford can sling it a good 30, 40, 50 yards if he wants to. He could if his alarm will allow it. Even at his age, he could still sling it. It's the Hollywood pass, as I always refer it to. Stafford always looks for it. He can think, no, go, like you said, go verts. Bugger it. I don't care if I'm only 25 years out. We could work this way up and just punch it in, as most teams would. Nah, I want a fade. Go to the back corner, go for it. I'll find you. Stafford can do that, and he will go and do it. Equally, he can do it, will go to do it, but come off with an interception. It is who he is. And people saying, comparing him to Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has won one Super Bowl, and all the time he's been in the league. So is Matt Stafford. But Matt Stafford had 17 interceptions in the season he won the Super Bowl. So what does it matter how many picks you throw in a season if you are coming away with that ring in your finger? That's what matters. What matters is the touchdowns he's throwing, the points he's putting on the board, the positions he's getting us in, the wins he's getting us, and the championship that came with it. It's as simple as that. He's taken a lot of stick. Online, tweets everywhere, articles. Turf Show Times in particular ran an article yesterday saying is Matt Stafford turning the Rams into the Lions? I laughed at it and I thought, no, do you know what? I need to read the article. The article made a couple of valid points about the running game. Like in 21 games out of 27, we've not hit over 100 yards on the ground. And it is, for me, still a concern that we do rely on the passing game. But because of that reliance on the passing game, that's where Stafford's thinking, I need to pull something at the back. I need to go downfield as quickly as I can because we've not got a consistent running game. That's another thing that frustrates me because the running game, like you said, Andy earlier, it started off well, it petered away. I actually remember like saying, oh my God, on Discord, oh my God, we've got an established running game here. And then it just fell apart. Stafford feels the pressure on him to deliver in the passing game. Now, the criticism he's getting here, bearing in mind the last 5 seasons, we've always started with an opening win. We never played one of the best teams in the league. And I said this last week, the Bills are one of the best teams in the league. They look like they're going to be, Josh Allen looks like this is going to be his big year to really break out as an elite quarterback if he's not already there. That is, they gave us their best. Like I said last week, we didn't give our best, but we know what their best is now if we're ever to come up against them. So we will know how to better prepare. Because we lost that game, people are just immediately saying, no, Stafford's past it. That's it. The offensive line was the problem in the Bills game. The offensive line this week performed a lot better. Stafford had a typical Matt Stafford performance in my book. He got the 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he got 272 yards, 27 completions off 36 attempts. That is your bog standard Matt Stafford performance. If you're not happy with that, then maybe the Rams aren't your team. Because that's the quarterback we traded for. And like I said, we've got the ring in the finger now to prove it. He paid off last year. It's year 2. It's only week 2. For Christ's sake, get off the man's back. I'm done with my rant there.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
That's all right, mate. As I say, if you look over his career so far, however many games he's played, he's scored 327 touchdowns to 166 interceptions. So basically, he's 50-50 almost. On his, he's basically 50% on his interceptions to what, but that's just the player he is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is who he is. Like you say, we just have to accept that. And, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, we'd all love for him to cut down on them a little bit.
Absolutely,
yeah. Ideally, we don't want, any, but, we have to, as you say, accept that this is just how the game is for him and his style of play, and also how McVay wants to play it as well. McVay wants those Hollywood plays as well. He's got Stafford now, and it was all of a sudden like, oh, well, you know what? I can now open up half my playbook again, right? Okay,
exactly.
Let's dust the cobwebs off this one, and this is what I can do now.
Well, that's it. It's exciting to watch the big plays. Yeah. It was, frankly, at times it was boring watching Goff that last season because he wasn't pulling anything out of the bag, whereas you're like 2nd and 4 or whatever, and Matt Stafford's launching it 40 yards downfield when he doesn't have to. It's like, it catches you off guard, and it's well when it's completed, it's great to watch. And it's just another thing is like if you go back to thinking about the Rams as a franchise, the Hollywood franchise. So if they're seeing highlights of big plays, exciting plays, it's going to attract them then to come in, want to learn a bit more, and then get hooked on the Rams and build that fan base. So you need to give something for people to watch and want to watch as well as performing.
Yeah, Hollywood is your glitz and glamour, town, Los Angeles. That's what, it's Hollywood. So you have to have those Hollywood plays to, keep up with the nature of the town. The thing, and this is what I can't remember who it was, but an analyst said, Jared Goff is the sort of quarterback you can win a Super Bowl with. Matthew Stafford is the sort of Super Bowl you will win the Super Bowl because of. That's the difference. If everything around someone like Goff is going well, as we saw in his successful years, perfect run game, perfect O-line, you can win with him as your quarterback. Whereas Stafford doesn't need everything perfect, I think, but he can still win you. As we saw last year, he can still win you the Super Bowl by himself, with his play. And that, I think, is the difference between, this is what people need to realize, is that, they're not the same player. If you'd have put Goff in half our games last season, we'd have lost them.
We don't win. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just to break down the 2 interceptions this week, Tom broke down the first one, and it was really, again, really insightful. And Tom, as part of the LA Rams UK team, has said that if there's any plays anyone ever wants broken down, he's more than happy to do it, because what he did is he actually described how the defence, I think, had set up looking like cover 2 when really it was cover 4. And it's one of those ones that he kind of described it as they tricked Stafford into reading cover 2, and then as soon as the play developed, it became obvious it was cover 4. But by that point, Stafford committed to the throw, which resulted in an interception. It was a bad read by Stafford. It was a bad play, essentially. The second one, it was the typical Matt Stafford to cut right down the middle pass that he usually goes for. The linebacker who made the pick read it and positioned himself well to give Stafford enough room to see the pass and to commit to the pass, and then he just pounced in. It was a good read by the defence, not a bad read or a bad play by Stafford.
Yeah.
So it's like 50-50.
Yeah, it was exactly that. It was 50-50. The first one, that was Stafford's fault. You know, with his experience, you would expect, and the amount he's seen over the years, you'd expect him to be able to sort of differentiate and know what's coming on that one a little bit. Yeah, all right, the defense can trick you, but, he really should have known. The second one was just, the linebacker was just in the perfect place at the perfect time and just played it, how you basically you want your linebacker to play it, which was just Kide. As soon as he's lobbing it, just jump in front of it and get it. And you can't fault him for the second one. I don't think that was just unlucky. But as I say, this whole Stafford, he's had quite a number of turnovers even last season as well, though, where they're not really his fault. Deflected balls, or the ones like, for example, horrible to say this about Benny Sco after we've just praised him, but where he's sort of bobbled it when he's caught it, flew up in the air and somebody's just picked. To me, they shouldn't be assigned to the quarterback as the quarterback's fault, because it's not. That is, there should be a separate category, I feel, for those ones that are not his fault. The players caught it, dropped it, or flung it up, whatever. There has been a lot where it has been those sort of things, which is not really on the quarterback, I feel. As I say, that should not, that should be maybe a different category in the league. It should be the interceptions are the quarterback's made the bad throw and it's gone straight, the players picked it off or whatever. The ones where it's been, bounced, chucked in the air, where it's hit, especially, if it's hit the receiver's hand squarely or his chest, you can't really fault them for that. That's just luck of the draw and, on the receiver that's not, they've not caught it correctly as they should do.
Yep, that's that. And I think that's a good point there to wrap up on our kind of look back at the Falcons game.
The only thing that just on the Falcons game that is worrying me, though, is if you look at the Falcons receiving stats, we had they let Drake London go for 86 yards and a touchdown. And I can never ever say his first name, Kadarel Hodge, who used to be with us. He had 57 yards. So there is still some worries in the back end of the team that there are players who are still getting a lot of yards. I think that's something we do need to clean up, but I'm hopeful, that the team throughout the year, maybe we'll get that cleaned up. But it is just a little bit of a worry, especially who we've got next week, that they're going to feast on that a little bit more.
Yep. So just moving on to news. So it's been a pretty busy week for us with a lot of moves in our roster. So the kind of big one is Bryson Hopkins being suspended for 3 games for a violation of abusive substance policy. Reading a bit more into it, appears to be performance-enhancing medication. As a result of that, it's not been confirmed at time of recording, but Jordan Rodriguez has pretty much confirmed it, that Kendall Blanton is returning to the active roster, having been signed from the Chiefs practice squad. You're happy to see Blanton come back, and obviously, what's your thoughts about Hopkins?
Hopkins, stupid boy, but we don't know exactly what it is, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But he really should know better. In terms of Blanton coming back, I'm happy to see him come back, but there's always that worry in the back of my mind. What was the reason the team let him go? So there's always that little bit of a worry. We let him go for a reason. What was that reason? And but I'm hoping that he can just come back into the team, settle himself in, get on with it, and provide us that little bit of cover for hopefully certainly for the next 3 weeks, and hopefully beyond. He can get himself going with the team again, and maybe take the number 2 position, or a best number 3, and stick with the squad a bit more, because he was effective when he played for us, and that's the thing. Something that we just need, I think, to keep an eye on over the next few weeks with him.
Yeah.
See how much game time he actually maybe gets, because obviously we've still. I don't think I've read that Harris has gone back down to the practice squad, so I'm assuming that they're going to keep, obviously because of what's happened with Hopkins, is that we are going to keep him in the 53 as well, which would give us, our third. Consider we only started the year with 2 wide receivers, on the roster week 1. What is the plan going forward?
And speaking of kind of like people being let go, we've had a few waivers, injury settlements for Daniel Isom, defensive back, and running back Trey Ragas. Put a no recall in linebacker Kerr Thomas, and we've terminated long snapper Matt Overton's contracts. In terms of signings, we've had quite a number of signings this week. Guard Ode Abushi has been signed to the active roster. Defensive end Zach Van Valkenburg, who's a rookie out of Iowa, has been signed to the practice squad. Former Ravens centre Matt Skura has been signed to the practice squad. Defensive end Tack McKinley has been signed, although I believe he doubles up as a linebacker. We've also seen the return of the Malika. Alcon Brown has been signed back today to the practice squad. That's Blanton come back, and now Malcolm Brown. Is there a worry that we're kind of maybe not regressing, but we're kind of going back in time a bit here with our roster, Andy?
No, not really. I think it's just players that we know, that they're all on the practice squad at the moment. It's not as if, we'll bring them into the, right, okay, we're dropping first team players for them. I think it's just a case of, you've got the space, let's get players in. Could be, maybe injury worries or anything else. I think Malcolm Brown, he gives us, I think, a little bit of something that we don't have in the team, which is that power element. Like I said earlier, when we need to get that, it's for, 3rd and 1, we sometimes lack that element of power. He's that sort of player that, can just smash you that yard that we need. That's why I said earlier about Benny Sco, maybe see if we can use him in that role as well. So, I think it's just a case of players, he's never going to be no Big Ben playoff like we all want Cam Akers to be, but he's that sort of player when it's, like I say, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, you just need to smash somebody in the mouth. He can just get you that power to smash in. The one that I think most interests me is Matt Skura, just for that flex. He has starting reps as a centre, in the Ravens for, I think he was there for 4 years, but again, he's one of those players, he has that flexibility, he can play the 3 positions on the interior line, so he's an interesting one, with the injuries that we've got, that he may possibly, I could see him maybe going on the practice squad to get himself up to speed with the playbook, and then possibly, if Abuche doesn't play out, or I know Alaric Jackson had a decent game last week, but if he seems to struggle, that he is somebody that we could maybe put into the team, to sort of just reinforce the front if we need to, in case there are more injuries, or players just because we are relying, we're getting to the point now, we are relying on practice squad players to sort of and for every one of them that looks plays good, there's 20 of them that just that they're on practice squad for a reason, they're not good enough to play in the league as starters. So he's one, I think give him a week or two, I think, to get up to speed with the book, and then I can see him being on the active roster, to maybe even just as a backup, just in case, or potentially taking one of the places if he's needed.
Yep, if anything, it just certainly kind of looks like what we're doing is addressing positions where the depth is becoming a bit shallow, and just kind of showing it up at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically that's all we're doing. We are just shoring up. We're running out of bodies, I think, that we can put in those positions, and it's right, who's available, who can we get in, right, okay, well, like I say, with the likes of Scorer, Tack McKinley, they're players who have got experience, so you would expect them to be able to slot in a little bit quicker if needed to be. Tack McKinley, what was he? I think he was in the 20s of the first round a number of years ago, so there must be something there. Maybe the Aaron Donald effect will happen with him. He can come in, play on the edge, get us a bit more pressure, a bit more sacks going off the edge. And we could have the Aaron Donald effect. How many players over the years have come into the team, as busts, or well, classic example, Leonard Floyd was a bust according to everyone. He's come in and, done the job. We've had players like Dante Fowler. They've come in, they've looked brilliant. They've left the team and all of a sudden, they're not doing anything. And it's the Aaron Donald effect. So, hopefully he may be another one of those that we can sort of, the talent's there, maybe McVeigh and the defense and the defensive coordinator could get his head down, get him working. Maybe, he can maybe a little bit of a revival for his career as well.
Yep, time will tell, I guess.
Yeah.
So moving on, week number 3, we are heading out to Glendale for our opening divisional matchup against the Cardinals. Games available on Game Pass and your usual alternative methods, kicking off at 9:25 UK time. So Andy, how do you feel that this game's going to go? And first of all, do you think Kyler Murray has been fulfilling his contractual obligations by watching tapes?
I don't know. I'm sure Mummy will tell us if he's been doing his homework this week. We'll soon find out come game day. But these are the games that worry me more than anything else. Yeah. It's the divisional games. I think Arizona week 1, to be honest, I think they got a drubbing. Last week, they came from behind, to beat the Raiders, which I think is one of those teams again in the AFC. The people are at the start of the season they were a playoff team, so they seem to be firing off just at the right time again. But I think if you look at Murray's stats, 277 yards in that game, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 28 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown on the ground. So, I think we know what to expect from Murray. Our problem, like I said last week, we seem to struggle with containing mobile quarterbacks, and we've seen it, time and time again now with Murray. He seems to always have a field day against us.
He does, yeah.
But
I always feel it's a struggle, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully the fact that I'm not comparing Mariota to Murray, they're on a different level. But the fact that we've, contained, maybe the adjustments that we have maybe made on defense, we can bring into this game to stop Kyler Murray. And obviously, we're talking about, Hopkins for PEDs. Obviously they're missing their big number 1 receiver in Hopkins for this game. Yeah. But again, they seem to have found that niche. They've got Zach Ertz with 75 yards last week, Marquise Brown with 68, and Greg Dortch with 55 yards. So, they're still passing the ball around as well. So it's going to be a tough for hard game. And, not to play spoilers or anything, but in my predictions, I do have this down, unfortunately, as a loss.
We are just looking at the predictions quickly. Out of the pool of 27, we've got 6 of you guys do have it down as a loss. 21 saying we'll win. Just quickly touch back last week, everyone said it was a win, so obviously everyone is correct there. And we've still got the 10 guys, I believe it is, that are still currently classed as all-seeing eyes. I personally had it down as a win myself, and that's on the basis that Hopkins is out for obvious reasons. And I'd like to think that with the improvements we've made by bringing Wagner in, we should be in a better position now to contain mobile quarterbacks. However, that was at the start of the season, and Josh Allen had a field day against us, so I'm not really too sure about my prediction for a win now, because I think I said it last week, Murray is the quarterback that we come up against that frustrates me the most, because I think I said it last week, I always feel like I scream at the TV, hit him, hit him, hit him, or for God's sake, please hit him. Or in that time when I'm saying that, like, you think out the distance, he's probably covered in those few seconds that I just said that, when he just takes off. Because if you look at that 2-point conversion last week against the Raiders, I think he ran for something like 83 yards they walked out, and he got in. The guy, for the height of him, the guy, he's one of these quarterbacks that if he didn't have the arm, he'd be a running back, and he'd be a good running back. He's that kind of player. He's a good running back with a probably better arm, and like I said, it frustrates me when we come up against him, because he seems to be the only quarterback in the league until Josh Allen last week where we don't seem to have much of an answer in terms of containing him. We can get to him, as proven last year when we went to Arizona, when Donald absolutely destroyed him in the end. we've proven that we can get to him. So for me, it's continuing that feed, because when they came to SoFi last year, they just totally ran over the top of us and totally stunned us. We'd gone, I can't remember exactly how many games we'd gone. I think it was 8 or 9 games unbeaten against them, and then they kind of like stunned us with that. But obviously we turned them back over another 2 times. I think if we can continue what we did in those games defensively, then we can at least contain them. But for me, Murray is annoyingly the pinch point I see for us this game. Is Murray the pinch point for you, Andy, or is there anyone else in that Cardinals roster you see a pinch point in terms of us being able to win the game?
No, it is just Kyler Murray. What he can do and how he can extend those plays. If you look at the rest of them, we match up pretty much across the board well. It's just the Murray factor that we seem to struggle with, as you say. And I think someone said it. I think it was last season. The problem with Kyler Murray is he's so small. When most defensive players go to make a tackle, they're actually going over the top of him because he's so small. I think it's just one of them. He's so small and so nimble that you blink and he's gone. Or he's just one of those annoying players. But I do think he is the big factor in these games, is how well, if we contain him, as you say, if we can keep him contained, keep him in that pocket, make his life hell, make him have to play it, chuck it around, we can beat them easily. It's that mobility that seems to always punish us, and he always seems to, apart, in that game, he seems to just, in the first game, he just ran all over us basically and made us look like idiots. I'm not being horrible, but he did make us look like idiots, but hopefully, we've adjusted. The only thing that does worry me as well, thinking about it, is obviously we're going to be without Troy Hill. So we're going to be relying on Kobe Durant, David Long, potentially as our 2, to play alongside Ramsey. It does worry me a little bit that his arm talent is, he's not like Lamar Jackson where he's limited with his arm. He can do it all with his arm as well. He has the best of, I compare Kyler Murray, he has the best of, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. But then he also has the best of Lamar where, he can throw it wherever he wants pretty much, but he can also run, like a running back, as you say. So if those 2, especially David Long, Durant start off slow and maybe lose a bit of confidence, that we could be in for a long day via the passing game because they'll just keep targeting them over and over again.
In terms of our performance, where do you want to see improvements on our performance last week?
To be honest, again, to keep harping on, just keep the run game going, get that run game going a little bit more. Just keep it going and control the clock a lot more. At the end of the day, I think the game plan has to be keep Murray off the field.
Yeah.
So if, I don't care if we only score, 17 points, 21 points, whatever. If we can control that clock and, come away with a large chunk of that at the end of the game, I think that's how you stop someone like Murray in Arizona, much like you would do with your Bradys, your Rodgers. You don't want them on the field. So if that means we're running the game hard, we play through the run, smash the mouth in a little bit. It doesn't have to be a pretty, Hollywood pass game. Just keep him off the field, keep us going. And if we can do that, I think we'll be fine, and I think we're just going to have to maybe put Ramsey on that island on his own with whoever it may be, Marquise Brown or Zach Ertz, and then double up whoever else it is, just to try and, stop that ability for Murray to dissect those 2 apart. Because otherwise, if we let him pick on them, I think we will be in for a long day, to be honest. It will turn into that shootout. Yeah.
So based on what you said, what that kind of sounds like to me is, I agree with you. I think guys like Murray, you touched upon like your Brady's, your Rodgers, whatever, you want to keep them off the field. You don't want to give them any time if you can. So really what I would say, I agree with you on that. And for me, what that would look like for me is we may have to call up Malcolm Brown from the practice squad if we can. And I think we'd have to run him and Henderson and just get them to just grind the yards to 4 or 5 yards per carry or whatever. It's just work our way slowly up the field, keep that clock ticking, try and keep the ball on the ground in our running backs' hands and just keep grinding it, and then Stafford can throw for a fade to the corners, the end zones for the scores. That's what I would like to see the game actually then look like.
Yeah, that'd be, to be honest, an ideal way for me as well.
But whether or not we do that's another thing, because, as I said about the Falcons game, we started off with an established run game, and then typical McVay, we don't need to run the ball, just throw it, just downfield, go, 40 yards, go.
Yeah, I think across the rest of the board, we match up well with them, Cooper Kupp, I think, matches up well with the likes of Byron Murphy, everything else matches up. JJ Watt is a shell of what he was.
Is he not injured yet?
No, surprisingly, he's not.
3.
He actually got a sack last in the Raiders game, so and a tackle for loss. So it's only hopefully it'll be this game. Not that I wish any ill on anyone, but hopefully it'll be this game that he goes down.
And then he can go back to making up spreadsheets. Oh no, wait, hold on. His brother's also out long term, so he can't really make up spreadsheets of how TJ Watt's the best defensive player in the league and is better than Aaron Donald. Oh well.
Yeah.
I guess he'll just have to play this year then. Oh well.
Yeah.
Unlucky JJ. Anyways, just moving on. So
we do match up well, and to be honest, if it comes to the kicking game, I'd much Matt Gay wins hands down over Matt Prater for me any day of the week. To be really honest.
Yeah. So in terms of predictions, so you, like I said, you'd said you can see us losing the game, unfortunately. Having talked about it, do you still feel like that? Like, obviously, your predictions were before the season kicked off. Do you still feel like it's a loss, or do you feel differently now?
This is one of those games where I just really do feel it could go either way, and I think it's going to come down to literally a field goal. I think this is going to be a field goal separated game. I think at the moment, just because Arizona's at home, I still think that the home edge will just give them that advantage. I think they do want to prove something after the, let's be honest, the drubbing we gave them, and in the playoffs.
Yeah,
we absolutely wiped the floor with them, I think. And it's Arizona. They tend to play well early in the season and then fade off as the year goes on. So, I think this game, will go. But I do believe, I won't give a score prediction because honestly, I don't know like I said before, it could be one of them. It could be a low score. If we play our cards right, we can keep it low, or it could end up, I think the Kansas City game, where we're shooting out. But I do think it is going to come down to, I think whoever has the ball last, and to kick the field goal sort of game myself. But I just see, because of the home advantage, Arizona just sneaking it because of the injuries we're currently carrying, across key positions of the team as well. I think they just slightly will be able to just put that pressure on us a little bit more.
Yep, I mean, I put this down as a win, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. I'm still going to say we're going to win, but I think it's going to be very tight, like you said, a field goal. It's going to be 3 or 4 points in it. I've got a bad feeling what we saw last week against the Falcons, we go up and then the other team looks like they're coming back, could be, and I hope I'm going to be wrong here, could be something that we see again this week, because we saw last week against the Raiders, that's exactly what happened with the Cardinals. The Raiders went way up, got cocky, Cardinals came back and won. If it's going to be close, I think it's going to be like a repeat of last week, where the fourth quarter, the Cardinals are going to kind of come right back into the game, and I think it'll be something like 28-24 or 34-31, something like that. But fingers crossed, I'm hopeful for the win.
Yeah.
So just mentioning about the Cardinals winning last week, so they obviously beat the Raiders 29-23, and elsewhere in the division, we saw the Winers up against the Seahawks, and the Winers came out 27-7 winners there. So everyone in the division currently sitting 1-1. Elsewhere in the league, Andy, any games jumping out from you elsewhere in the league that was worth a mention?
Yeah, there was a few. Obviously, I think, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, that turned into a bit of a fist fight on a few occasions, including, Mike Evans getting suspended. And I think they've given Bruce Arians a warning about his actions on the sideline because he shouldn't have been there. But, I don't think he was ever, not going to want to be on the sideline for that game due to the rivalry. fair play to Miami coming back against Baltimore in such epic fashion. To
Yeah,
beat.
what a comeback, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I did watch that game, and that was quite. You thought they were, much like the Falcons, we thought they were down and out.
Yeah.
And then they came back and fought. Jacksonville, absolutely, Matt Ryan, they still can't seem to get any luck because they got absolutely smashed by the Colts. Got smashed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was, and obviously I think we mentioned a little bit before, Jared Goff 4 touchdown game for the Lions. They looked good, and to be honest, Aiden Hutchinson looked like he should have been number 1 in the draft because of how well he played, 3 sacks, and everything else. Again, Buffalo, this week, they absolutely smashed Tennessee 41-7, so again, they're just looking like the team to beat. They look like, nothing's going to stop them so far this year. Keeping it within the NFC, Philadelphia, again, looking fairly comfortable against, Minnesota, and potentially looking like that dark horse NFC team who, could be a bit of a problem as the season goes on. Pittsburgh getting beat by New England, how long before maybe we start seeing Trubisky benched and Kenny Pickett coming in for them as well? Yeah. So there's a few that, to watch in terms of, young players that maybe could potentially step into the team, and again, I suppose it's the team, the Falcons that we've just played, the fans for Atlanta are already calling for Desmond Ridder to be given a chance after a couple of weeks of Mariota. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens between, some of these teams with, quarterbacks that are waiting in the wings who could potentially step in as well throughout the season. But yeah, that Dallas Cincinnati one, that was probably the shock of the week, I felt, in terms of, I did not expect that in a million years, that, Dallas would even stand a chance against Cincinnati with their crew they had playing as quarterback. I thought that was going to be, they were going to get annihilated.
Yep, so looks like we've got the Cowboys coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so
yeah, I'm hearing rumours on that
tricky.
one that Dak may be back by then, though, they reckon, at the moment. There's rumours that he may be fit for our game, so we'll just have to, again, wait and see what happens with that one.
Okay, that's Jerry Jones saying that, though. This is a guy that still thinks he can win a Super Bowl in Dallas after all these years.
Yeah, well,
I would believe anything that comes out his mouth.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Okay, moving on to the socials now. So, first of all, you've kind of already answered this one. Look at Discord. LP asks, who are this season's dark horses? You kind of feel like the Eagles could be that?
Yeah, given the first 2 weeks with the Eagles, I think if you look at them on paper, their defense is up there. Their offense, bar their quarterback, people want, it's whether Hurts can put it all together this year, which, over 2 weeks he does seem to have. So they are my dark horses, and don't want to jump on the hype wagon as well, but Detroit as well. All right, they lost the first week, but it was a close game against the Eagles.
Yep.
But this week, they looked a complete team, and Dan Campbell seems to be doing a good job for them at the moment. So I wouldn't write them off. Maybe being up there for the playoffs, especially who they've got in their division as well. They just seem to be firing at the moment, and hopefully for them that maybe they can get something going. But they in terms of the NFC are probably my 2 dark horses. With the AFC, it's wide open. There's that many that it's so stacked in the AFC this year that anything could happen between now and the end of the season.
If anything, the Super Bowl last year proved the 2 teams who made it were not even considered as dark horses. So, like you said, the AFC's wide open. So, who knows? But I think I agree with you that I think everyone will maybe see the Eagles are a bit of dark horse, but I think the Lions are, for the next few weeks at least, just to see how they're going, are worth keeping an eye on. Number 1, Jack 9 asks, why do you think we seem to get so complacent when we get big leads?
I don't know. I think it's just the mentality of most teams. They seem to, take the foot off the gas a little bit. Like I said, we were 28-3 up, very much in control. And I think it's just a mentality thing. Maybe it's, the coaching, takes the foot off the gas a little bit, which, leads that complacency with the players. But I couldn't really say. I think it's just most teams do sort of take the foot off the gas, but we seem to take our foot off too much, whether that's down to the coaching, the players, or a combination of the two. I'm not too sure. But, I don't want to see us doing that. Even if we are, comfortably, I'd like us to keep our, like I said earlier, keep our knee on the throat and just keep going and, let's bang the points up, let's see us put, 40, 50 plus points on teams just to stop that mentality from creeping in.
So moving on to Facebook, Paul Milligan says, they say that fashion is cyclical, but do you think that football coaching is as well? McVeigh being the brightest of you bright young things, running the I formation with a fullback is straight out of the 1990s. What do you think? Do you think this is one of the ones that McVeigh's looking at? Oh, I remember when I was a kid, people used to run the I form all the time. I'm going to do that.
As I've said previously, McVeigh comes from what's called the Shanahan tree of offense, so maybe he's just looked at what other teams are doing around the league, what has worked, maybe it's something that's been, it's buried in the very back of his playbook somewhere, and it fell out, it just so happened maybe the page of the binder had come loose and fell out on the floor. And he was like, oh, well, I've just realised, let's try this week. It was weird at first, but obviously it's worked. So it's just going to be one of them things. I think he's just trying to adapt, and it's good to see that he is adapting, not just, I think we've all have complained throughout times that he seems to be very one dimensional. It's going to be this or, we just keep going, banging it, that he is willing to adapt and, maybe make changes to help the team where he can. Like you say, to get that run game going. So hopefully, maybe there's a few more things up his playbook that he's now digging through old ones to see what else he can bring up from, back in the day, maybe when he was at high school.
Yep, fingers crossed he's got more tricks up his sleeve. So just before we wrap up, the last thing we have to decide is our LA Rams UK Player of the Week. Who do you think, Andy, is your Player of the Week?
I think everyone, is expecting it to be, I think if you look at it statistically, it's going to be Cooper Kupp, obviously, 100 yards plus 2 touchdowns again. But my personal shout out for my offensive player is going to be Benny Sco because of what he did. He's come into a new position that he has never played before in his life and, did a damn good job at it. So offensively, he's getting my player of the week. Defensively, I'm going to give it to Kobe Durant just for, he's come in. He's done exactly what we want. He's got a sack and a pick. He's also he got them while suffering a hamstring injury, which showed he's got a bit of gritness about him as well, and that fight in him still. So he's going to get my defensive player of the week. What about yourself?
Benny Sco, absolutely brilliant in offense. Came out, found his niche. So he'd be my offense one, and on in defense, yep, Durant, guy's a rookie, interception, sack, great performance for me. So yep, Skoranek and Durant would be my players of the week. And with that, folks, that about does it for episode 77 of the LA Rams UK podcast. Thank you very much again, Andy, for joining me. Always a pleasure, mate, to talk to you about Rams.
Yep, same to you as well, John. And take care and hope we speak to you again soon.
Yep, no doubt we will. No doubt we'll be back next week. Hopefully, one of us, I guess, will have been wrong with predictions, but hopefully it's you that was wrong and we're talking about another one next week.
Yeah, but fingers crossed that my magic streak has ended of being the all-seeing eye and it's all failed with any luck.
Fingers crossed, but we'll see what happens, folks. But again, thanks for watching, folks. Take care and go Rams.